Hey everyone, welcome back to the Her Resources podcast. I'm your host, Linda Misegadis, and today we're talking about something that affects every workplace, every team, and every relationship we have at work. Yet it's often overlooked when organizations are focused only on results. We're talking about the human side of leadership. In today's world, leaders are navigating constant change, uncertainty, workforce challenges, burnout, disengagement, and growing pressures to do more with less. At the same time, employees are asking for something many organizations struggle to provide: trust, connection, authenticity, and leaders who genuinely see them as human beings. The truth is that leadership isn't just about strategy, it's about people. And every decision a leader makes creates a ripple effect that impacts culture, communication, engagement, performance, and ultimately the lives of the people they lead. Our guest today understands that better than most. Dr. Fay Niewiadomski has spent more than 3 decades helping presidents, senior executives, and global teams navigate leadership, change, and organizational effectiveness in environments where trust isn't authentic and where leadership decisions carry significant consequences. As managing partner at ICTN, Fay has built her career around helping leaders develop what she calls business EQ, the ability to combine competence, courage, and compassion to create both high-performing organizations and thriving people. Her professional expertise is powerful on its own, but her personal story adds another layer of wisdom. As a 2-time cancer survivor, a single parent, and a trusted advisor to leaders around the world, Fay understands resilience not just as a concept, but as something actually lived. Today, we're going to explore what leadership looks like when we stop separating business results from human impact, why trust matters more than ever, and how leaders can create workplaces where people don't simply survive, they flourish. Welcome to the new chapter of the Her Resources podcast. I'm your host, Linda Misegadis, and I'm so excited to be stepping into this next season with you solo. This podcast has always been about amplifying women's voices, exploring the challenges we face in HR, leadership, and life, and sharing the tools and inspiration we need to thrive. This is more than just a podcast, it's a community, a space for us to learn, lead, and lift each other up. Welcome to this new beginning. This is the Her Resources podcast. Let's get started. Fay, welcome to the Her Resources podcast.
Thank you very much, Linda. That was a beautiful introduction.
Yes. Oh,
And
thank you so
totally
much.
resonates with how I see leadership.
Yes, well, I am so excited to have you here to talk about this. I think probably more than any time, at least in the last 20 or 30 years, this conversation is so important. There's so much going on, and not that there hasn't been a lot going on in the past, but right now things are going on so much more rapidly than I think ever before, which is really causing us to have to take a step back and view leadership through a different lens. But I'm curious, can you tell us about your journey and what led you into leadership consulting and organizational transformation in the first place?
Let me begin by giving you this story that makes my culture kind of a potpourri of cultures. I grew up in Jamaica in the Caribbean. And that was, it was a time when it was a British colony. I went to an Oxford school. It was a very different kind of education where there was time to go to libraries, to learn how to use libraries, to do research, to do nature walks. We had a fantastic laboratory for learning to cook and do flower arrangements and science. It was
Wow.
a model school, in my opinion. And it has shaped a lot of my perspective on the world. I believe that learning is extremely important because leaders who are not competent do not give other competent people a chance. Many of them feel threatened by them. Not everyone has a comfortable ego. So that has been an extremely important pillar shaping my view of leadership. I also went to school with people who came from all over the world. And
Yes.
that also shaped my relationship with people, looking at people from across all continents and seeing them as friends, as fellow humans. That also made a
Yes.
big difference. And it makes you far more confident to reach across and speak to people who are not like you, because that takes courage. It's very easy to be afraid of differences and shy away from that instead of, you know, being very comfortable with that from a very young age. And learning
Right.
compassion. I believe we learn as humans not only through knowledge, but very much through
Uh-huh.
experience, what we feel, our emotions. And that
Mm.
translates into leadership because there isn't a single leadership decision. No
Mhm.
matter how much we fake it or tell ourselves something different, it's driven by a thought that generated an emotion that led to an action, and that action led to a result. And unless we understand that chain of causality, linking our emotions to the results we deliver as leaders, we're missing a very, very important component of what makes leaders. I was
That is so powerful.
I was often chosen as a leader, but I never knew why. I never understood why, since I was a child, people would, want me to lead. And I
Yes.
accepted it. I thought it was fun. But as I progressed in life and I began to see how important leadership is, and I don't mean titles and position, and
Right.
I mean the
Yes.
ability to have people willingly work with you,
Mhm.
willingly
Yes,
follow
yes.
you, willingly see you as a role model, is not something that is contrived. It has to come from that coherence
Yeah.
in your personality, knowing who you are, even when it's not articulated consciously.
Right, right. Wow. That is Faye, a couple things that you said there that just really hit is one, I think the experience that you had in multiple cultures helped also to your point in shaping and looking and viewing things through a different lens, which I think that a lot of people don't have that experience. And so their framing is very narrow in how they view the world or the situation or what's going on. And I think that what you said there is so powerful. The other thing that I really like about what you said is that nowhere in there did you talk about leaderships being about the C-suite or what your title is. It is something about how you approach situations, how you approach life and what you're doing. It's very much sounds like it's more inherent to who you are as a human being into whether or not people are willing to follow you or want to, like you said, work with you.
I think that's an important part because we might think we can fake sincerity,
Yes, yes,
but somewhere there something resonates and gives you away when it's not real. I've lived
yes.
in New York. I've worked across all continents of the world, Asia, Europe, the United States, and I feel comfortable everywhere. I don't feel like a stranger. I don't feel threatened by other
Interesting,
people.
yeah.
I see them as
Mhm.
people who offer something that I can learn from, even when they do things I disagree with. It gives me a
Right.
cautionary tale. And
Yes.
in my book, I emphasize that leadership is something that starts at birth.
Yeah, okay.
What we see, what our parents do, we are supremely mimetic creatures. We copy, we're
Mm,
like little monkeys. And what we see impacts us far more than anything that people
mm.
can say. It's not the words that shape us, it's the experience, it's what we hear. I've even come up with a concept I call imposterella, which is a takeoff on Cinderella. And,
Okay.
and particularly for little girls, they get told these stories a bedtime
Mhm.
story. And what more critical time to be told a story than when you're half awake and half asleep? Because technically you're in a hypnotic state. You're very susceptible and suggestible. And so you get a story like Cinderella or like Snow White or any of these fairy tales that we don't really think critically about. But if you pause and analyze those stories, the girl never speaks, she never has a voice.
Mhm. That's so true.
Somebody
That is so
decides
true.
for her.
Yes,
Somebody
yes.
decides that she's an object that can be given away. 7 divorce.
Right.
And
Yes.
that sinks into our brain, into our subconscious mind, and becomes part of normality. So
Mm.
why is it
Wow.
surprising that
Yes.
we feel less than we should as women?
That is so true. Yes, yes. No, that is real. I had never thought about it through that perspective at all. Thinking about that, but you're absolutely right. And what a message we're sending and still continue to send because we haven't changed anything
No,
in how we approach that as much as we talk about those things. And what I hear you saying as well is that if we're trying to make a change in how we view or even how women are viewed in the world today, we have to break down those systems that we've had in place that are continuing if we really want to see a different result.
definitely. We have to step back and examine what we accepted as children when we didn't have the critical capability of determining
Right.
whether what we were being told is true or false, whether it works or not. Who does it serve? Who benefits from that
Yeah.
belief? And who is hurt by it?
Right.
And we just accept it
Yeah.
because it seems normal, it seems real, it seems true until we hit the wall of reality. And I have worked with so many women who have had their lives destroyed by bosses who have been cruel, who have been exploitative, who have
Yes.
never acknowledged the contribution they make. I think we
Mhm.
talk about glass ceilings, but what about sticky floors where you are such an
Mm.
asset and you're making this person look good? You're not going to get
Yes.
promoted.
No, that is so true.
So you make not because you're not competent, but what do women
No.
do? They
Mhm.
double down, they work harder, they get a few more certificates and
Yes.
qualifications, and they stay stuck.
Wow, Faye, just in what you were talking about there is a lot of what I've been chatting about lately is really this whole idea of non-promotable work, and women find themselves very much in that position of doing. Linda Babcock wrote a book around that's focused in this whole idea of non-promotable work, and women are the worst at finding themselves in that. And I'd never thought about it through that lens of what you just said in the sticky floor idea that yes, by us continuing to do the things we've always done, that yet not only is it not the glass ceiling, it's we never get off the floor because we're stuck at where we are right now.
And statistics will confirm that. There are very,
Right.
very
Yes.
few women at the very top.
It's so
Lots
true.
of them at the
Yes.
bottom,
Yes.
making people look
Yep.
really good. And
Yeah.
the other thing that I mention in my book is this is about the prison of our beliefs. Our mental prison
Mm,
is the
mhm.
strongest one because we believe in doing a good job. We've been told that working hard is the key to success. We
Right.
have been told that we shouldn't be self-promoting, otherwise we're brazen and
Mhm.
aggressive.
Right.
And
Yes.
that is so untrue.
Mhm.
But we
Yes.
never stop from rolling in the waves and the sand and the surf to look at the horizon and say, where is this taking me? Where am I heading?
Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that moment of pause to
Mhm.
reassess what you're carrying around in your head and whether that
Mhm.
served you or not is something that we don't
Right.
take the time to do.
Hey everyone, we're the Her Resources podcast, where women share real stories, real lessons, and the resources that help them succeed. We're always looking for inspiring women, business leaders, creatives, educators, and changemakers who want to share their journey and empower others. If that sounds like you, we'd love to hear your story. Reach out to us at contact@herresourcespodcast.com and let's start the conversation. Yeah, so tell everybody the name of your book. We'll make sure we link it in the show notes as well and give everyone the links, but tell everybody the name of your book.
The book is Decisions That Matter: How to Rethink, Reimagine, and Reset Your Life. And it's about leaders putting themselves first. If you are not confident to put yourself first, you are still playing the role of the guilty person who is taking center stage that you have earned and deserved, but you don't feel that this is right. That's the imposter syndrome, not believing you deserve the credit. And when there's an opportunity for a vacancy to be filled, women will look at their CVs, and if they're not 200%
Yes.
qualified for the position, they won't apply.
Mhm.
But their
So
male
true.
counterpart, who is probably 70% okay, will apply
Yes.
and will get the position.
Yes.
And we have been told, you serve, you work hard, that's what you're rewarded for. That's what we reward women for.
Yes, it is.
And,
Yes, that is so
and the
true.
language we use to
Mhm.
describe women in religion, in
Yes.
history, in literature, in the news, should
Mhm.
really pay attention to the adjectives that are used to describe us,
Yes.
and
That is
and
such a
see if we
great
want to
point.
accept it or not.
That an even better point is maybe it's time for us to stop accepting this. I'm curious, Faye, you've worked with presidents, executives, and global teams. What separates those truly exceptional leaders from the others?
The ones who are willing to stop and not only hear what people are saying, but actually listen to the meaning.
Mhm.
Those who
Right.
are willing to take more than a cursory glance at people, the ones who actually not only look but see what's in front of them, and are willing
Mhm.
to take the time to understand who they're dealing with and to regard
Mhm.
the people as assets, as human capital,
Mm.
as people who have knowledge in their
Right.
heads, rather than coming with an arrogant approach that I know best, and
Yeah.
those are just pawns to be moved on a chessboard.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
don't understand why people are so surprised when say, 70% are disengaged. Of course they're disengaged. They're exposed
Right.
to cognitive dissonance every single day.
So true.
They see a wonderful mission statement written on the wall, and they see
Mhm.
all kinds of superlative values there.
Yes.
And they see a total contradiction in what they're living.
Mhm. That is a very good point. We see that so often. I always think, when you see so much today with corporate culture, in my opinion, and what I see in many organizations is that culture is nothing more than a marketing slogan to attract workers. It's not even really a retention strategy in many cases. It's literally just to get people in the door. And the problem is that is as deep as that culture goes oftentimes, or it's maybe whoever is at the top making those decisions, they're just a lot of words that sound really good, but there's no substance behind that actual corporate culture that they're talking about. I don't even know if I believe wholeheartedly that corporate culture actually exists, that the culture is really more at the individual team levels, where that's where you see the true culture within an organization, not at the broader basis.
You're absolutely right, Linda. But it's really important to define what we mean by culture. And
Good point.
that culture is literally the translation of our beliefs,
Mhm.
and values
Hmm.
into actions, into
So
daily
true.
behaviors. That is what culture is, and that's why it is the most robust, ironclad part of a business.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's why people burn out when there is a disconnect
Yes.
between their values and the so-called culture.
That's a really great call out because we're seeing so much of that, and it sounds like if I make the connection in what you're just saying there is that we are hearing more about burnout today than ever before, even though burnout is not a new concept, but it's been around for a long time. But it seems like it's much more prevalent in the in our working environment today that we're seeing extreme burnout, and especially in women. I think women particularly are really facing this burnout issue.
It's true because we are still following industrial revolution
Mm,
regulations in a world that is totally different. And it doesn't
yes.
it doesn't apply.
Yes.
It's a misfit.
No, that
You
is
know,
true.
my
Yeah.
book was addressed to people in mid-career. You know, people who
Mhm. Okay.
have reached a point in their life where they're saying, "Do I really want another 20, 30 years of this? Or do I want to do something
Yes. Yeah.
else?"
Right.
And the
Right.
something else requires a complete reassessment of what we believe, what we have been doing, and an assessment of what we want. It's so confusing to people because they have been told this is what you should do, this is what success looks like. We have 1,000 prescriptions, but no one has ever sat down to, to truly understand themselves, to diagnose who they are, what has made them happy, what has made them feel fulfilled. And to add another layer of complexity on top of that, and this is something I do talk about in my book, we have the economics of discontent. And what I mean by that is that we are bombarded by media and advertising and everything that by design makes us feel less than,
That is, yeah.
inadequate,
Yeah.
too old,
Absolutely.
too fat,
Yeah.
too tall, too short.
Hmm.
You have a wrinkle. Oh my goodness. You're actually
Right.
living. I- I- these constant messages about our
Hmm.
inadequacy and that somebody has a product or a solution that's going to fix it for us has created a tremendous insecurity and
Yes.
feelings of not being good enough in the world because it's
Hmm.
commercially viable, it's profitable.
Yes.
You're not going
No,
to
that is true.
you're not going to go out and buy something because you don't need it. So you have to create that sense that without this,
Right.
you are falling short. Without this, you are missing, you know, the bandwagon. You're not in vogue. You're not in the right place. And so we're earning
Right.
and spending and still wondering why we're unfulfilled.
Yes, yeah, no, that hits home on so many levels, and I think exactly what you were saying there. I something that I've even been pondering in my own life as I think about my career trajectory and the direction that I've gone. Exactly what you said. I don't know that I ever said this is what I want to be and headed out on this path. It was, basically guided for me, and I just went along because I thought, well, if I'm working really hard and I move to the next level and then maybe I go over here, but never did I really sit down to say, what do I really want to do? What do I find fulfilling? And you're right, I think a lot of women find themselves at this place, especially at this stage in our lives as well, where we are kind of going, who am I and what do I really want to be doing with my life, with, to your point, that next 20 or 30 years? I don't want to keep doing what I've always been doing. But to your other point is that then we often look to this commercialization of all of these just quick fixes, tips and tricks when really what it takes is what you're talking about is sitting down and really doing that hard work of taking a look at ourselves and figuring those things out.
In leadership, probably my greatest lesson in leadership was the result of one morning going to my office and finding that my office had been bombed and burnt. And there was nothing. There.
Wow.
17 years of work and research turned to ashes.
Wow.
And when you look at something like that, you can say, oh, it's a disaster. But it's also a liberation. It
Yeah,
forced
I could
me
see that.
to really take a good hard look at what I wanted. What
Wow.
did
Wow.
I really want my life to be? And for
Mhm.
me, being a good leader, and people did trust me as a leader, but I never knew how much until my office was destroyed and I didn't have an office. I had a fancy office with lots of, really great portraits on the wall, and people envied the office. But even in such a situation, at the time I was a dean at the university, and students would come up and say, you tell us because we don't believe anybody else, you know, earning that trust. And so I had to ask myself, when you lose titles, when you lose offices, when you lose positions, who are you? What is your worth? Who do you become when all the trappings of status are taken away? And that was the hardest question I ever had to answer. And that was the time when I made probably the most difficult decisions in my life. I resigned from a deanship, which people thought was insane and nobody believed it. They kept thinking I was fired.
I'm sure.
And the second thing was I separated from my husband.
Okay.
He was alcoholic and I just couldn't deal with anymore. And I had 4 children to support, all under 18.
Wow.
And I had nothing in the bank to speak of.
Mm. Mhm.
And I said to myself, I am not prepared to live another 30, 40 years doing something that does not really align with my values, with my purpose, with who I want to be. I want to work with leaders and enable them to be better leaders, because every decision you make as a leader impacts the lives of other people, whether you know it or not.
Absolutely.
And
That's so
the
true.
higher your position and the greater the power you have, the greater the damage or
Mhm.
the good that you can do.
That's a great point.
So I walked away from that knowing that I didn't
Wow.
have any room for failure.
Right, right. Very courageous for you to make that decision. Were you frightened when you did that? I mean, I have to
I
imagine,
was
like, were I
terrified.
would be
I was
yeah,
terrified.
scared out of my mind.
And but that fear combined with anger
Mhm, mhm.
fueled my motivation to actually make things work.
That is incredible.
And I started out by going to schools and challenging their education system, because that's the future. How are we educating? What are
Yes,
we plugging into people's brains and telling them this is an education?
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that was a good start. I felt that was a strength I had, and I would start there, because going from, a university position to helping schools reshape their curriculum, retrain their teachers, and that worked very, very well until I then shifted and said, I want to work with leaders because those are the people shaping the future. Those are the people hiring the students. And
Mhm.
I went out and proposed a program where it was looking at, how leaders could be more compassionate, how they could be more effective communicators, because communication is the power that holds it all together.
Totally
Not
agree.
not talking, but being able to influence people.
Yes,
And
yes.
what is absolutely stunning is when we do our business emotional intelligence profiles, one of the
Mhm.
components in it is influence.
Okay.
Another component is self-awareness. And the component of influence is one of the weakest in senior leaders.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
self-awareness, on a scale of 1 to 10, averages 5 or less.
Are you ready to take your podcast to the next level? Let LJM Productions help you sound your best. We specialize in podcast editing, production, audio restoration, and mixing, ensuring every episode is polished, professional, and ready to wow your audience. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned podcaster, we'll handle the technical details so you can focus on sharing your voice. Partner with LJM Productions today and hear the difference.
Really? Wow. Wow. That is really, it's surprising to me, I guess, on one hand, and then not surprising on the other hand. It's surprising because I mean the two definitely go hand in hand. But I've always thought, from when you think about leaders at that high level, there has to be a certain amount of a little bit of ego, right? You have to believe
A
enough in
lot of
yourself and
ego.
have a yeah to really think that you are the person to lead all of this. But along those lines, with that ego, it does seem like there has to be that balance of self-awareness for you to be able to take a look and see, am I doing the right things? Am I making the right decisions? What kind of influence do I have on the organization? Is that good or bad? And so, wow, that is really incredible to take a look at that.
But just imagine if you have a large ego, you don't
Mhm.
want feedback. You don't want to
No,
see
you
your
do not.
flaws.
That is so true. Yes,
And so
yeah,
you stay in that safe cocoon in your comfort zone. And
yeah.
most people who are in a bureaucratic relationship will not communicate upward and say, I disagree.
Mm. No, that is very
And
true.
you have the
Yeah.
other extreme, those who what we call charismatic. That's a very
Yes.
controversial word. We use it as a positive, but it's not necessarily positive.
That is true.
And the
Yeah.
reason for that is people who have high self-awareness, and
Mhm.
with it comes high impression management, which means they know themselves, but they also want to make a favorable impression on the public. So they are masterful manipulators. They
Mhm.
don't necessarily use their self-awareness for becoming
Good point.
better people, but for managing
Right,
the impression
right.
and managing the
Mm,
followers in such a way that
yeah.
they look great. It's called manipulation.
Yes, we see that a lot in politics. Politicians, I think, are probably the greatest at master manipulation in those, and even the very best who go in with the best of intentions still will, I think, find themselves in exactly what you talked about there. That there is that struggle to maintain that level of authenticity in their approach, and it becomes more of a charismatic leadership style, which leads to manipulation.
Yes, I mean,
So,
people call it charismatic because it looks good. There's a lot of bravado there, but
yes,
they don't.
yes, a lot of
They
bravado. Yeah.
confuse the style with substance.
That is very true. Yes, we see that. Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. I'm curious, many women, they feel a lot of pressure to feel strong all the time. And for someone who has gone through what you have, what would you say to someone carrying that burden today? Like, how did you find those moments where, like, did you feel like you had to be strong all the time? And how did you cope with that, and what advice would you give?
I think it's a huge mistake to believe that you need to be strong all the time.
Mhm, mhm.
You need to manage how you show up, which is something different
Okay.
than being strong all the time. A lot
Yes.
of women confuse honesty with being a sincere leader. Uh, I give you an example. One of a VP, a vice president, someone who was up to be promoted as president, was diagnosed with breast cancer. And instead of managing the situation, she felt that she had to be honest, and she told her management about her diagnosis. And that
Okay.
totally derailed her career.
I could see that happening, yeah.
So when I say managing how you show up, you need
Yeah.
to really think about the context. You need to think about, who am
Mm,
I working with? How will they read
mm,
this? What impact will
good
it
point.
have? And
Right.
taking your time to assess strategically where you are
Mhm.
and
Yes.
who should know about this. It doesn't mean that you don't tell people, but you need to find a circle of trust where you can
Right, yes.
cry, where you can ask for support,
Right.
but not in the public eye, because the public is merciless.
Yeah. Yes, yes, it is. That is so true.
And
Yeah.
uh, I believe many women don't give themselves the time and the grace to think strategically about what they think people will
Yeah.
appreciate: the honesty.
That is a really good point, and I could see that happening because, I often joke that, when my children were little, you pretty much, you pretended like you weren't a mom because if anybody thought that you were, if you called in sick, because of your children, you wouldn't call for your children, you'd say you were sick or something because if then there was the question as to it was already questionable whether women belonged in the workplace, let alone now, that just would prove the point that all of a sudden, if you have to take time off for your children or do these sorts of things, that, you clearly were not capable of balancing all of those and didn't belong in the workplace. So you just pretended like didn't have a family. Um,
But
so,
can you think of how unrealistic that is? How
oh,
ridiculous it
so
is, and
unrealistic.
why are people
Yes.
surprised that a consequence is we have birth rates down to zero?
Yes,
What?
yes, it is so true. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really great point, and I think part of it is that, and I'm curious your thoughts on this is one of the challenges that we're probably facing is how do we create environments where people do feel safe enough to feel human? I think the closest we got was during COVID when it was forced on everybody because suddenly you had to look at everyone through a different lens, but like most things, as time goes by, we find ourselves right back into the rat race of how things always used to be. But there was that window of time when I think there was a level of humanity that was being viewed at. But how do we create those environments?
I believe everyone needs to create what they call a circle of trust. Some
Yeah.
good relationships outside of work. I
Yes.
really don't
Yeah.
encourage people to confide in work colleagues.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
Because you're in a competitive situation. It's unfortunate. It's
That's
how
true.
it is. It's not
Yes.
collaborative.
Yep. No. No. That is true.
And we haven't fostered that collaborative uh, culture, which would
Right.
actually be much better for business because people would willingly
So
share
true.
their ideas and help each other rather than seeing how
They
they could
would.
push the other person down or take their idea
Yes.
and present it as their own. So
Yes.
that circle of trust needs to be absolutely outside of work.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
My
Yeah.
mother was a fantastic woman, and she was my best confidant. I used to speak to her about things that really bothered me and benefit,
Yeah.
from her wisdom and her calming effect so that I wouldn't, rush and do something that I was angry
Right.
about. So,
Yeah.
i- you know, whoever is outside of work that you
Mhm.
can trust, people in your
Right.
community, a doctor, a therapist, somebody who doesn't have
Yeah.
a vested interest in pointing
Mhm.
you in the wrong
Yes.
direction.
Right. Very good point. Yes. I think that's really good advice because I do think that sometimes we find ourselves having that circle in work. And you bring up a really good point because it is a highly competitive environment. And not that you can't have good relationships in work, but you're right. Our environments are set up as such that it is competitive and we are pushing. And so if you bring all of that into the workplace, what type of an environment are you creating for yourself? So it's a really good call out for sure. They talk a little bit. You talk in your book about business EQ. What exactly is business EQ?
Business EQ is the result of many years of research to answer the question, what is the difference between people who are successful at work and people who don't do so well at work? What are the factors? Can we predict success and failure?
Mm,
And
yeah.
they arrived at 7 really critical factors. And these factors are decisiveness, you know, how we take decisions, fast, slow, what holds us back, what drives those decisions. The second was motivation. What exactly is motivation? It's not what we think. It's about, are we more pessimistic or optimistic? Do we feel that things will go right, that we will succeed? And that all of those thoughts are really critical. The third element is influence. Are we able to lead without position? Are we able to persuade others? Are we good listeners or are we just talking?
Mm. Yeah, oh, good point. Yeah.
The fourth one is adaptability,
Okay.
meaning how do we approach change and disruption and innovation? Do we want to live in a predictable, controlled environment where we know what to do, or are we always looking for variety and change? And that's very different behavior. And it can be measured. It's not a linear scale, it's a bell curve. So you can statistically look at where people will be. The other number 5 is conscientiousness. And conscientiousness is not uh, what you think. It's split into 2 components. One is structure, which is about discipline,
Okay.
and the other one is about rules. Now, discipline is about keeping time, meeting deadlines, things like that. But rules is about conformity and compliance. The
Mm,
people, if you want someone to do something that's going to be innovative and out of the box, and you have someone whose conscientiousness is very high and they want to follow the rules and be disciplined, you're not going to get any creativity. You will get delivery on time, but you need the rule breakers. So it's not about right and wrong. You need the rule breakers to think out of the box.
yeah, that's true.
You
Yeah.
have empathy. Again, empathy
Hmm.
is is not the highest predictor. The highest predictor of performance is conscientiousness.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
then you have stress resilience, and that's broken down into 2 parts. You have resilience and control. And that is at the foundation of burnout because you have people who can have very high resilience and low control. You can have high control and low resilience It can be any combination, so it's very fluid. But if you are someone with high stress resilience and high
Mhm.
control, you are an excellent candidate for burnout because you won't even recognize
That's so
that you
true.
are
Yes.
destroying yourself because that's the superwoman.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Um, working hard, and those people make pretty brutal bosses because
Yeah.
they don't recognize that other people are suffering and cannot take that level of stress that they subject themselves to. And this is
That
not
is
just
true.
about women, it's about men and women, it's about humans.
Yes.
And
Yes, bad people, yeah.
it's very bad for them because
Mhm.
they can make good bosses, they can produce results, people would rely on them,
Right.
especially if they,
Mhm.
also have high conscientiousness, they deliver.
Right. Yes.
But they won't innovate. They will drive their team very
No.
hard. And if their empathy is on the
Right.
left side,
Mhm.
therapists will get a lot of clients.
Right. I have exciting news. The Her Resources podcast is opening sponsorships. If your brand supports women in HR and leadership, think talent, well being, learning, pay equity, coaching, productivity, or mission driven tech. This is your moment. Our listeners are decision makers and change makers who show up for real conversations and practical tools every week. We offer flexible options, pre-roll or mid-roll host reads, series sponsorships, and thought leadership integrations that highlight your story without the fluff. Ready to connect with a highly engaged audience and grow with us? Email contact@herresourcespodcast.com and put sponsorship in the subject line. I can't wait to collaborate. Yeah. Yes. No, that's a really great way of breaking that down and in a completely different way. So I like what you were talking about there on the bell curve and that you could have a variety of different ways that all works together. So
Yes.
it's not just this, you're either all this or all that. It can be a little bit of different components
The
of
most
this.
important message, Linda, in this is that your behavior is a choice. Your personality is a given, but your behavior is a choice. And that's
Yeah.
where self-awareness and impression management come in. Because when you become
Yeah.
self-aware, let's say I'm
Hmm.
someone who likes to take fast decisions, but
Okay.
I have a fresh team who have no experience.
Hmm.
And so if I push them faster than they are able, not in terms of capability, but in terms of
Hmm.
understanding where I want to go, what is the destination I'm leading them to? And
Right.
what are the elements they need to have, and to give them not
Hmm.
only the psychological safety of being able to ask
Right.
questions without feeling stupid.
Right.
I am going to find myself running and my team is not following. And my team is
Good.
not following
Okay.
because of me, not because of them. But when you're not
Right.
self-aware as a leader, you blame your
Hmm.
team.
Yes, you
And
do.
so you
That's
begin to
true.
fire
Yeah.
people and rehire people thinking that, the last
Mm.
edition wasn't good. You need a new one because
Right.
the fault was with them. It's with us as leaders. We have tremendous power as leaders when
It's very
when we
true.
get to know ourselves, and that's what the whole thing. Get to know yourself. Get to know your behavior. Recognize who you are, but recognize you absolutely have the power of choice. So I can decide if I'm a 10 out of 10 on decisiveness, which means I want to go like a bullet train,
Right.
and I'm not talking to someone who can go at bullet train speed, or the context requires that I slow down, I can choose
Hmm.
to be a 2. It's a conscious choice. It's
Yes.
not a
Yeah.
given.
That is true.
And by
Yeah.
understanding how I can and understanding how I can orchestrate all those different behaviors
Right.
to have a leadership style that is so adaptable that I
Hmm.
remain true to myself, but I
Right.
understand that I need to shape my behavior to
Right.
fit the circumstances, the audience, the culture,
Mhm.
the objective I want to achieve, and for
Yes.
people to feel heard, for people to feel
Mhm.
that I have seen them, I understood,
Right.
and as a result of that, each one has a different a set of behaviors, and by understanding not only myself, but who is on my team and the
Right.
complementarity I need. And we go into all of that with team dynamics. Who is on your team? Who should be on your team? Who shouldn't be on your team? That's how great
Right.
leaders, develop a powerful organism of leadership. It's
Right.
not about
Right.
you. It's about understanding yourself, understanding who you should be surrounding yourself with so you can have extraordinary results, because you need sometimes to have the humility to say, I know I go too fast. I'm going to slow down. What questions do you need to ask me so that you feel
Yeah,
confident to go on the journey?
that is true.
Most
Yeah.
leaders
No,
don't do
that's
that.
really good advice. No, that's true. They don't do that.
Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? The question is why? Because we have
That
been
is a good
told
question.
that a leader is very much like a gorilla in the jungle. Somebody who should be strong, never wrong,
Yeah.
pound your chest,
Yes.
don't. So
Right.
the definition that we have is flawed.
That is true.
And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so many women make the fatal mistake of trying to be a man when they're in a leadership position.
Yes, we see that a
And
lot.
and, and
Yeah.
that's not a secret for success at all.
No, no, that is true. If it were, we'd see a lot more women in leadership if that's all
Yeah,
that there
and
was to it, right? Is
if
to
you're going to
yeah,
be a
yeah.
fake man, I would prefer to have a real man.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
But if you're going to bring a new flavor to the leadership equation, welcome.
Yeah. Right, right. I totally agree with you. That is such a great point. Faye, what is the cost when leaders really fail to recognize the human impact of their decisions? Because I think we're seeing that right now is that there is a real failure on leadership at the top to see that all we're seeing it through the way that layoffs are being handled, how communications, the new technology with AI coming on, that there is a lot of the humanity has been removed. What's the cost when this
I think
happens?
the cost is very high. I've described that as the bankruptcy of leadership. And
Mhm.
the first consequence of bankrupt leadership is that you create a culture of mediocrity.
Yeah, oh,
And
yeah.
that's a very
Mhm.
high cost, because when you,
Yeah.
when you create that mediocrity, people are not focused on the goal. They're not focused on the service. They're not focused on the product. What they're focused on is survival. And that's the lowest
Yes.
common denominator you can get in a
Right,
business. So you
right.
find products that are flawed. I mean, look at some iconic companies like Boeing and what's happening to
Oh,
quality.
yeah. Yes, yes, yeah,
Mediocrity.
such a good one.
Don't speak up.
Mhm.
And you create an
Right.
environment of such psychological insecurity
Mhm.
and
Yes.
fear and lack of trust
Right.
that no one knows the truth anymore. It all becomes a game of
Yeah.
smoke and mirrors. And
Yeah,
and
yeah.
when the truth comes out, it's like a house of cards. It all
Mhm.
comes crashing down, but nobody ever said it. Nobody dared to say
Mhm.
it. And so many
Right.
young people today don't want to be an employee. It has
No,
become
they
a dirty
don't.
word. What they want
Yeah.
is to have their own uh,
Mhm.
enterprise, their own business, their own startup. They want to do
Right.
something where,
Yes.
and this is the key to it, they see purpose.
Yes.
It's not about
Yes.
money.
No, that is true.
When you have a clear purpose, you
Mhm.
have the And that's where resilience comes from. People think resilience is something
Right.
that you can learn. No, resilience is protecting your identity, defending your values, pursuing your purpose.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
three things are what engenders resilience, because that's something you're ready to fight for.
Right. Right.
Defending who
Yes.
you are, defending what is most valuable to you, and pursuing a dream that is your
Mhm.
purpose. But you
Right.
don't have that in
Right.
the corporate
Yes.
world.
Mm-mm.
We have
No,
this
that is so
cognitive
true.
dissonance I mentioned. You tell me something, but that's not what I'm experiencing. You show me something,
Yes.
but I don't see it. So why would I give
Right.
you my heart and soul?
Yes. That is, yes. Yeah. We're seeing that a lot.
So
Yeah.
bankrupt leadership results in mediocrity and financial
Right.
bankruptcy
Yes.
ultimately.
So true. Yeah, I mean, they go hand in hand, right? When people stop performing and you start to see those mistakes start happening, things start creeping in. Yeah, no, absolutely. It makes so the price is very high in what we're talking about there. If you could give every leader 3 habits to develop tomorrow, what would they be?
The first one is competence. You need to
Okay.
learn something new every single day of your life. If you're not learning, you're
Yeah.
dying, and you are not able to
Yeah.
be a good leader because you don't even have the capability of knowing what you know and what you don't know, and have the humility to say, I don't know this. I need someone who's an expert in this to advise me, and I'm going to
Right.
listen,
Mhm.
because you
Yes.
can invite them for the form. The second
Yes.
thing is courage. And by courage, I
Okay.
don't mean, bravado and brute force.
Right.
By courage, I mean being willing to do what's right. Looking at the
Yeah.
impact of your decisions and your choices, and understanding there are consequences not only for you, but for people, for your team, for your family, for your country, for whatever. And be brave enough to avoid negative consequences, to do what's right, to maintain values, to
Yes.
uphold what's worthwhile in life. And the
Mhm.
third one is compassion. We
Mhm.
human beings learn best and do best when they listen to their feelings and emotions and articulate those into kindness.
Yes.
Kindness
Yeah.
really is not a weakness. Kindness means that
No.
you are able to recognize that the other person in front of you is a living, breathing person with feelings, emotions, and a life like you. And by
Right.
affording that compassion, it's reciprocated. We have a better world, we have better relationships. We can actually, reach out to each other and make the world safer for everyone.
Yeah. Those are 3 really good ones, for sure. What are some practical advice that you would give to our listeners, today when we think about you've talked about so many amazing things. What's some of that practical advice that you would give all of our listeners?
I'd love to read 4 questions that they can use as a self-test to
I would
determine
love it.
whether they are living what they really want. If the answer to the question is a yes, you're on the right track.
Uh-huh.
If it's a no, you
Okay.
need to do something about it. So I'm going to look away
Okay.
at my screen. The first question is, do I
Yes.
put myself first sometimes without feeling guilty?
Mm, that's a good question.
Guilt means that you feel inferior and undeserving, and therefore you will never tell
That's
the
a
truth.
powerful
You won't
one.
have the courage. You will not do.
Mm-mm. Yes, that is very true.
The second question, by the way, the emotion that comes from that is resentment.
Yes, I can see that for sure. And I think women particularly maybe feel that even more because we do feel guilty when we put ourselves first or when we think that we're maybe taking too much space in a room. But then to your other point is then that does breed resentment because then we're angry at the other people, and really it's not their fault. It's really it's on us by allowing that guilt to consume us and to dictate that behavior, right?
Very true. Second question is,
Yeah.
do I get mad at myself when I make mistakes?
Mm,
If you say yes,
that's a good one.
you're good. This one actually, mad means you falsely assume perfection is achievable. Therefore, you don't approve of
Yes.
yourself, and the feeling you have is inadequacy.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's a
Yeah.
really
That
important
that
question.
one is really yeah, that one is a really important question. I agree because you're right. That's a tough one for sure when we
Mm,
think about that one. So that's a good
because
one.
we have been told that we should be perfect. And perfection is
Yes, we have.
unachievable. It's a moving goalpost that you will never, ever, the only feeling you can have is failure from that.
That's a really great point. I kind of compare perfection with trying to play golf. You are never going to be good at golf. You might have a good game, you might have a good day, but you're never going to be perfect at the game of golf. It's not achievable, and I look at it the same way in life. Like perfection is not achievable.
Absolutely. Question number 3.
Yeah.
Am I comfortable and confident expressing my feelings, opinions, and convictions?
Mm,
Uncomfortable means you feel you're not good enough and your views don't matter. And therefore,
okay.
the emotion you have is unworthy.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of us really deal with that one, that where you're afraid to speak up or to say those things. And you're right. It's not because we're not smart, or we don't know, but it is we don't think that we're worthy enough to have a voice in that environment or in that conversation. So yeah.
And last but not least, do I recognize that other people's problems are theirs and not mine?
Mm,
If you assume,
that's a really good one.
if you assume that you can control others' feelings and you try to please them,
Mhm.
failure is assured because the only feelings you can control are yours. So we put ourselves, if we have these beliefs, these are about the deeply held beliefs we have
Right. Yes, that is true.
and the values we hold and what we have been told.
Yeah.
And these are things we were told when we were little kids growing up. Didn't know
Yes.
any better. We
Yeah.
accepted that this is how good behavior should look.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That is so true.
So to
Yes.
be a leader, you need to be, you know, willing to say no when you mean no. You need to
Mhm.
be
Yep.
willing to speak with authority figures and tell them what needs to be told. You're not claiming
Yeah.
that you are, a perfect person or that you know
Right.
better and you need to learn. When I talk about influence, it's learning about being a really good diplomat, learning how to tell the truth without being offensive and disrespectful.
Yes.
Here is an
Right. Right.
example that I have formulated to show how we can express ourselves by telling the whole story, not a part of it. And that whole story would be I will read it and then I will explain how it works. It has 4
Yes.
parts.
Yeah.
You've reminded me of the delivery date 4 times. I get the impression you think I'm irresponsible. I feel over supervised and it makes me nervous. Please specify the reassurance you want and trust me to handle this myself.
Mm.
That's assertive boundary management.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
upward communication, which is very hard for most
It is very
people.
hard for most people. I agree. Yes.
But it's composed of 4 elements. The first element is a fact. And it must always be a fact because there is no possibility for disagreement.
Yes.
You've
Yeah.
reminded me 4 times of the delivery date.
Mm-hmm.
The second
Yes.
component is the opinion. And it's really important to start with how I interpret that. I
Yes.
get the
Yes.
impression you think I'm irresponsible. See, it's not accusatory.
Mm. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
The third piece is the feeling that must be included, and that's also about
Mm-hmm.
me. It also begins with an I. I feel over supervised, and it makes me nervous. There is no
Yeah.
you in that. There's no blame.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
fourth piece, you must ask for what you need and want. What action is required? Please specify the reassurance you want and trust me to handle this myself. That's what
Yes.
we call a whole
Yeah.
message: fact, opinion, feelings, and action.
That is such a great framing because I could see any one of our listeners being able to take each of those pieces in a situation and be able to use that as a practical guidance. So if I'm someone who isn't comfortable having those types of conversations or haven't gotten, where I need to be with that, I could take that and use that and map those things out for myself before I have the conversation. So that way I'm prepared and it also then helps me to control those emotions a little bit better. So, because so many times we go in with the intention of doing all those things you just said, and what comes out is just a blubber of emotion. And we don't really talk about why we're feeling what we're doing or what we're asking for. We're not clear in any of that. And then we leave the person on the receiving end confused about why we're even in this
Absolutely, Linda. And
conversation.
the most critical word you mentioned is before. This
Yes,
is something
yes.
that is not easy to do
No,
because
it
it's
isn't.
not
Yeah,
it's not intuitive, it's not spontaneous. You need to calm yourself
that's
down,
true.
you need to prepare,
Yeah,
you need to even write it down so you can see
yeah,
it and
yeah,
and really use the I when you express the opinion and the emotion components. Otherwise, it
yes,
comes out
yeah.
as an accusation.
That is so true. My husband and I talk about that even in your personal life. If I say, you make me feel that way, his response to me is, I can't make you feel anyway.
Mhm.
You are responsible for your own feelings.
Exactly.
So instead, it's instead of me being accusatory to your point, it's more of that this is how I feel. And that's a much different conversation and probably opens it up a little bit more to the other person to then recognize, like, oh, well, those are your feelings. And so you're not accusing me of that. And then now maybe we can have a conversation around that.
Yes,
So,
and therefore the request makes sense because now the
yes,
other person
yeah.
wants to accommodate you rather than defend themselves.
Yes, yes, that is very true. Yeah. I like that because I think sometimes too there's just this misunderstanding of when we say that you're not responsible for the other person's feelings, it doesn't mean that you're going into it with the intention to hurt the other person either. So it doesn't mean that you get to be ugly or disrespectful and that, because you're not responsible for how that person feels. It is still taking all of those human decency components into it but then recognizing that how the other person receives that, they might be offended by it, but you're not responsible for that. If you've done all of these pieces, then those are their emotions and their feelings that they need to deal
Indeed.
with. So, yeah, no. Faye, this has been such an amazing conversation. I have so enjoyed getting to know you. How can people connect with you? Where can they learn more about your work? How can they get your book?
I would love for them to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we'll put Faye's link in our show notes so you can easily just click the button and go right to Faye's
I
LinkedIn page.
also am very happy to have discovery meetings. And so I will send that link as well for people to book. I love to
Wonderful.
meet new people. I love to help people become better leaders. It's not a business for me. It's an absolute mission in life.
I can tell that's just the passion that comes from you, Faye, and that you can tell that this is just something that is authentic. I'm so happy that everything burned down around you. I mean, what a terrible thing to say, but I'm so happy that it happened because it put you on this journey to do something that clearly you were meant to be doing.
Exactly. And I'd love for them to read my book because I tell a lot of the life stories as well as leadership lessons. I blended it together. It's not a business book. It's a business book with leadership insights, personal stories, and some
That's the best
philosophy,
kind.
but that I think will help people to really rethink, reimagine, and reset their lives. We live much longer. What are we going to do with the next 50 years?
Yes, yes. No, I can't wait for all of our listeners to read your book. We'll put the link for Facebook in the show notes as well, so you can get to it and get your hands on it. And for me, this has been such a meaningful conversation. And one of the things that I love about today's discussion is that it reminds us that leadership isn't just about metrics, performance reviews, strategic plans, or organizational charts. Leadership ultimately is about people, and every conversation we have, every decision we make, and every action we take creates a ripple effect, as Fay has talked about so eloquently today. And when leaders lead with competence, courage, and compassion, they don't just build stronger organizations, they actually help build stronger people. Faye, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your experiences and your incredible perspective with our audience. And to our listeners, we always love to hear from you. What was your biggest takeaway from today's conversation? And have you experienced a leader who embodied courage, compassion, and trust? Or maybe someone who hasn't? Share that with us too. And maybe you've have experienced those ripple effects when those things happen. But join our conversation by sharing your thoughts in the comments on LinkedIn, across our social channels. And if today's episode resonated with you, please help us grow the community. Like and share the episode with a colleague, friend, or leader who needs to hear this. And for every share, it helps us amplify your voice, your stories, and your conversations that are shaping the future of work and leadership. So until next time, remember, the workplaces we create are reflections of the leaders we choose to be. So take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and thank you for being a part of the Her Resources community. Faye, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Linda. That was a brilliant hosting of a podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll hope to have Faye back again in the future. So
Look
thanks,
forward
everyone.
to it.